Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who well, peace, and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of the video is for here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. Right, and that's taken from Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 14. And pretty much this guy in this video states the obvious, you know, that America is finished, is done. All right, they pretty much lost the war already. Most of all their bases from what we know and what they're telling us, it's all destroyed over there in the in Asia, West Asia, what is it, East Asia, what you call the Middle East, right? The Levant region, right? In America, Iran holds all the cards over there, and pretty much the downfall of America, right, which is Rome, is the beginning of our kingdom, right? The start of our kingdom, right? Scriptures say, Second Ezra 6 and 9, that Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, right? So pretty much this is just another warning, right? Just explaining to you that the end is here. As a matter of fact, that was my last verse, but grab it right now. First Peter 4:7, it says, "But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer." Right? We know that this end and this collapse, comes with Jacob's trouble. Things are about to get a lot more crazy. This is the time to lock in, right? Watch, and pray to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, in those names, so you can be delivered and protected in the time. All right. And like I said, this dude states the obvious. Right? When I heard it, I was like, yeah, pretty much. So you can check this video out, Double Down News. I'm gonna play like the first 5 minutes. All right.
Iran has defeated the US empire and humiliated Israel. They did what no one thought was possible and forced the largest military empire the world has ever seen to the negotiating table.
The Iranians, very smart people. They're sort of primitive genius.
This is the story of how it happened and why the world as you know it will never be the same again. Between 1776 and 2019, the United States carried out over 392 military interventions worldwide. Yes, they failed to win in Korea. They stumbled and fled in Vietnam. They spent trillions only to be worn down and forced out of Afghanistan. They left Iraq fractured but still standing in their wake. But those were peripheral, slow-burning counterinsurgencies on the edges of the empire. But what happened with Iran in 2026 is an entirely different category of collapse. The empire has never faced a systemic defeat like this. It has never been fundamentally broken, outthought, and humbled on this scale. For decades, Washington and Tel Aviv spoke of Iran not as a country, but as a target, an inevitability on the neoconservative. In 2026, the unstoppable force met an immovable object. And what the world just witnessed wasn't just a military stalemate. It was the moment the US empire was defeated and the myth of Israeli military invincibility was permanently shattered.
If it weren't for me, Israel would not exist today.
How did a nation completely suffocated by Western blockades manage to outmaneuver, outlast, and ultimately break the political will of the most heavily funded military alliance in human history? Let's look at the numbers. Iran didn't try to build a stealth fighter to match the American F-35. Instead, they saturated the skies with the Shahed drone series, built using commercial, off-the-shelf parts. Total cost to assemble, roughly $20,000 each. And this is where the financial trap snaps shut. To shoot down a $20,000 drone, US and Israeli forces were forced to fire Patriots, Arrow 3s, and THAAD systems. Each one of those interceptor missiles cost between $1 million and $4 million. You are spending millions to destroy thousands. And worse than the financial cost is the stockpile cost. First, the slow drones sent hours in advance to force Israel and the US to empty their launch tubes. Then, the faster cruise missiles. And finally, while Western air defenses were completely occupied, Iran deployed their own indigenously produced ballistic missiles, which Western intelligence agencies knew nothing about. US soldiers evacuated their bases in the region in terror. But Iran's asymmetric strategy understood that the modern Western soldier carries a tracking beacon right in their pocket. Iranian intelligence managed to track the personal iPhone data of US military personnel. Iran was able to target US soldiers right in their hotel rooms. To make these precision strikes completely unjammable, Iran shattered the ultimate Western monopoly, GPS. Tehran integrated a multi-system hybrid architecture using Russia's GLONASS and China's Beidou. Look at the sky. The United States lost between 24 and 30 MQ-9 Reaper drones above Iran. With the Yemeni armed forces, that number climbs to an astonishing 51 downed Reaper drones. Look at the ground. Iranian precision salvos bypassed regional air defenses to successfully strike over 200 specific targets. Billions of dollars in physical destruction ripped through at least 20 US military facilities across 8 different countries.
I guess my biggest surprise, almost immediately, missiles were flying at these 5 other countries. I said, why is he doing it?
For the first time since the Vietnam War, the US military was forced into humiliating, hurried evacuations of personnel from several peripheral bases. But for Israel, the blow was existential. And yet, Iran's most devastating weapon wasn't even kinetic. It was geographic. By shutting down the Strait of Hormuz for nearly 4 months, Iran triggered what economists are now calling the third oil shock. This single corridor controls 20% of global petroleum and 25% of liquefied natural gas. The world lost 1.15 billion barrels of oil supply. It culminated in an admission of absolute desperation from Donald Trump himself.
If we keep bombing, those ships won't be going. And you're talking about $500, $600, $700 million a day. Also, we run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. You know, there are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out.
Yeah, so and currently they're bombing again, right? So I'll grab a few of the scriptures. 2 Thessalonians, the First Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians 5:3 says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as to dwell upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." So, just like the prophets have been saying, there is no out, of what's about to happen, which is World War III. Even if they say peace and safety, it's going to end in destruction, right? There's no peace, there's no safety, all right? There will only be destruction because, the small hatters are going to continue to drag America into this war. And pretty much America has been dragged into the war. And at this point, America is basically, you could say they're fighting for themselves, because the straits are closed. And as Trump just said, 4 weeks, which I believe he said about 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they said around July 4th is when they were supposed to hit tank bottom and whatnot. All right, so all hell is about to break loose, but America has lost, right? And the world is about to shut down. all right, and go into Jacob's trouble when the MOTB is about to be issued. All right, but America, again, it's finished. But let me grab this Matthew 6. It says, Matthew 6:19, lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth where moth and rust do corrupt and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust do corrupt and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. All right, and this place is done. Thinking about, down the line, your children's and college and your savings account and all of that. Listen, the prophets are here to tell you it's up. All right, this place is done. It's finito. Okay. You should be thinking about, the kingdom of heaven. It says Matthew 6:22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve Yahweh, Bashmi Awashai, Mammon, where Mammon goes into money. All right, so loving this world, trying to hold on to the money and hold on to what you got and your all your assets and things like that will lead you into trusting and leaning on Esau, Edom in these last days and taking his micro seed, right? Taking that MOTB, which you don't want to do. All right. This is Slocky. Yeah, I didn't get this one over here. Okay, I got it earlier. All right, so this is Isaiah 47, and notice again, this guy right here mentioned Russia and China helping Iran. That goes into Ezekiel 38, right? So the scriptures are faithful and they are true. All right, this thing is happening, and World War III is about to heat up, and right now, pretty much, we're waiting to see what Russia's going to do next. All right, the scripture saying in Ezekiel 38 that Russia's going to think that thought, they come against Israel and America. But right now, they're coming up against NATO. All right. For the most part, America and NATO is kind of still attached. They're divided, but the full attachment hasn't happened. But NATO was pushing Russia for this war, and helping Ukraine and whatnot, and building drones for Ukraine. So most likely, they're saying that Russia is going to come against NATO. And then once NATO start getting their ass beat and either go down, those behind the backdoor deals pursuant to Obadiah 1 and 7, can be made. It says, this is Ezekiel 38 and 10. It says, thus said the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Awashai, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land upon walled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. To take a spoil, to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, right, that dwell in the midst of the land. All right, so eventually Russia is going to come against, Israel and America. And the two situations for Iran and NATO, plays a role in this basically, because America and NATO has their hand in the situation, with Ukraine and with Slovakia, and then Israel and America has their situation happening with Iran, and then it goes deeper than that when you have the BRICS, right, and things that's been happening with Venezuela, which is connected with China. So it's a lot happening, all right. But ultimately, Russia is going to make that move. All right. Grab this Obadiah 1 and 7. It says Obadiah 1 and 7, and I can get it in the NLT. Obadiah 1 and 7 says, all your allies will turn against you. They will help to chase you from your land. So my point in my thinking about that is at some point, NATO's going to be like, listen, this is basically, I would think they would say, look, this is American Israel. They're the ones really causing the problems. However it go down, right? That's going to cause Russia to say, yeah, I'm gonna just attack them, and NATO's going to also join Russia, which we'll get that precept next. All right. Says all your allies will turn against you. They will help you chase you from your land. They will promise you peace while plotting to deceive and destroy you. Your trusted friends will set traps for you, and you won't even know about it. And another thing that is happening is this Turkey situation. Turkey is a part of NATO. All right, and Israel wants to attack Turkey eventually, right? And they don't want America giving Turkey F-35 or anything like that. And if Israel attacks Turkey, you know what America is going to do? Be dragged into it with Israel and attacking NATO. So shoot, that could come first. It's a lot of possibilities as we're watching these things unfold, right? But that's probably a likelihood because the scripture Jeremiah 15:45 says that Jehoshaphat will drag them out and make their habitation desolate with them. And if Israel goes against Turkey, which is a NATO member, and drags America to attack Turkey, that's Article 5, of NATO, right? And obviously Trump America wouldn't be part of NATO no more because you're attacking NATO. And then, shoot, the deals, the deals will be made. Like, what the hell, America is attacking NATO. They're gonna look for like Russia, So that's a possibility too, and that one is brewing right now. As we speak, with Israel upset with this America trying to get Turkey F-35. They're complaining about Israel saying that they have like air superiority, but if you give Turkey the F-35, it's like they're on equal level playing field, basically. So that situation is there. This is Revelations 17 and 12. It says the 10 horns, which okay. Revelation 17 and 12, it says the 10 horns of the beast. Oh, it's in the NLT. Yeah, I get NLT. Revelation 17 and 12 says the 10 horns of the beast are 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. Now, this is NATO, right? EU, right? The beast is talking about America, and basically America is the powerhouse, right? The weapon of the banking elites. And America set up NATO, which is like vassals. All right, and they don't rule, right? They don't make the decisions. When Trump went to the NATO meeting, he walked in there and he said, "I'm the boss." Right? He told all NATO members, he told them, "I'm the boss," because America is the boss. All right. So they're ruling with America, but under America, right? Revelation 17 and 12, it says the 10 horns of the beast are 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. They will all agree to give him their power and authority. See, Trump said, "I'm the boss." They said, "Yes, sir." Together they will go to war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will defeat them because he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and his called and chosen and faithful one will be with him. All right, so ultimately that goes into World War III. Because during World War III, whoever's fighting whatever which side, they're all going to turn and fight Yahweh when he pulls up, right? Because he's coming out of the heavens, right? Out of the sky with chariots, right? An invading force to planet Earth, right? And at the same time, pursuant to Matthew 24, verse 30, the elect will be beamed up in their chariots, and that's why we're going to be with him. We are the called, chosen, or faithful, right? If if we're of that number, who are willing, I am. It says Revelation 17 and 15. It says, then the angel said to me, the waters where the prostitute is ruling represent masses of people of every nation and language. It says the scarlet beast and his 10 horns all hate the prostitute. They will strip her naked and eat her flesh and burn her remains with fire. Now this kind of goes off right. If you get this in the KJV, it says this. KJV says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And the beast is the system, because the whore rides, the beast basically. The whore is America. The beast is the whole system. So it kind of don't go off, but at the same time it do. The KJV is better. All right, NATO is going to go against America. It says Revelation 17 and 16. The scarlet beast and his 10 horns all hate the prostitute, right? They will strip her naked and eat her flesh and burn her remains with fire. So NATO too will also shoot nuclear missiles on America, because this is going to be World War III. World War III will be nuclear. All right. I believe it's let me see, Isaiah 9 and 5. It says Isaiah 9 and 5, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So World War III will be with missile shot. As you can see what they're doing right now, shooting missiles at each other. The only difference is they're going to shoot the nuclear missiles. Right? Everybody keep talking about the nuclear war, that may or may not happen, and it will happen. So that's when it was talking about when it says burn her with fire. America will be burnt up along with Israel with fire. All right. Revelation 17:17 says, For Yahweh has put a plan into their minds, a plan they will carry out, a plan that will carry out his purposes. They will agree to give their authority to the scarlet beast, and so the words of Yahweh Bashmal will be fulfilled. And this woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over the kings of the earth, right? The great city is America. All right, and NATO is the 10 horns. They're gonna shoot, America, with nuclear missiles along with Russia. So the KJV really breaks that down better. But yeah, so now this is Isaiah 47, just ending it off here. Basically, the downfall of America, as the dude was speaking about in the video. Isaiah 47 and 1, it says, come down and sit in the dust of virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take millstone and grind mill, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover thy thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yet thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance and I will not meet thee as a man. And that's what's happening to America right now. The downfall, right? They just had their 250th, celebration. Kingdoms usually last about 250 years, right? And as you can see, all hell is breaking loose. Okay, this is definitely the end. It says, verse 4, as for our Redeemer, the Lord Yahweh Bashmal shall post is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called a lady of kingdom. Right, I was wroth with my people, I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy, upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. Right, America, we went into slavery. Right, look what America. They showed no mercy. It says, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that said in thine heart, I am in the house beside you. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment. One day, the loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection. For the multitude of thy sorceries, for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee. Thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and then else beside thee. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Trump just said in the video, he said, at one moment they just started attacking Iran started attacking everywhere.
8 different countries.
I guess my biggest surprise, almost immediately, missiles were flying at these 5 other countries. I said, why is he doing it?
For the first
Yeah, real confused out here. All right. Verse 11, Isaiah 47:11, it says, Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off. See, and there, hey, no peace and safety, right? And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Stand with thine enchantment, and ultimately going into what? Nuclear missiles, right? Shit. He'll be making the whole that same statement, talking about all of a sudden everyone started shooting us with nuclear missiles. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest prevail, because the devils lean on their enchantment and their sorceries, right? Said, thou art weary in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon you. So the star watchers, and the soothsayers, and things like that, they're watching for the signs, like the one lady, Abramovich, or whatever her name is, the witch they got working with the Rothschilds, says, Behold, they shall be as stubble, the fire shall burn them, they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor a fire to set before it. Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander, every one to his quarter, none shall save thee. All right, and so it's up. All right, repent, turn to the Lord Yahweh by Hashemel Shai, while he may be found. All right, because the time is short. Shalom to those elect, right, which consists of men, women, and children who are willing and has been edified.